I survived 100 days in Skyblock Infinite. Now, if you don't know what the difference is between Infinite and the original Skyblock, don't worry about it, I got you. Essentially, in Skyblock Infinite, you spawn into an endless void of a world, however it's populated by countless different islands and structures just kind of chilling everywhere up here in the void, as opposed to normal Skyblock where there's literally nothing. So, join me on this journey as I survive this infinite void and transform our very basic and desolate Skyblock island into a thriving paradise. Now, as always, if you do end up enjoying the video at any point, then please consider dropping a like and subscribing, because every sub is one villager saved from an eternal life of servitude to me in these videos. Okay, maybe I'm lying to you, nothing can save them anymore, but hey, I might feed them a bread every so often if you do. Anyways, without any more rambling, let's begin our void-bound journey. So, starting things out on day 1, it began pretty much like any other Skyblock, with me grabbing the top 2 layers of dirt from the island below me and using them to expand things out a little, before then chopping down the tree and getting a whole bunch of saplings from it. But then I found myself looking off into the distance to spot what I thought was an ocean monument just chilling there in the middle of the void. And even up here, in the middle of nowhere, I can never escape guardians. No matter how hard I try, they always find me. And I hate them. They are a satanic creature that must be washed from existence. They are nothing but a stain on this blocky world, and I will not stop in my mission to rid them from every world until none of them remain. Anyways, moving on, I finished grabbing the last of the dirt before making a crafting table and a wooden pickaxe that was very quickly followed by me making a cobblestone generator and almost immediately upgrading my pick to a stone one, as well as expanding out the island a little more and replacing the dirt around the cobblestone generator with some stone, as well as planting down some more saplings. Oh, and I also made a little wheat farm, and I mean, I don't even know if you can call this thing a farm. I mean, just look at it. It's just 2 sad plots of wheat seeds. But hey, I guess you gotta start somewhere, no matter how depressing it may be. Now finally, as the sun was setting on our first day, I spent the night mining up as much cobble as I could because I was essentially just waiting on some more trees to grow. By the morning of day 2, I was absolutely stacked on cobble, but broke on wood. However, I did have a singular tree that had just grown, so I chopped it down and put last night's cobble farming to good use by starting to make my way over to the closest neighboring island just to see if there was anything useful that I could get from it. Now, while slowly making my way over to the island, I did end up spotting a shipwreck all the way down at the bottom of the world, nearby the island, and I thought that it would be a good idea to visit that soon, in hopes of it having some iron or just anything useful. Anyways, I eventually got over to the island, and, well, there wasn't really much here except a singular mangrove tree that I really didn't want to chop down right now, and a little bit of water. So I decided to grab a bucket of that, because now I can get an infinite water source that'd help me get down to the aforementioned shipwreck. So I made my way back to the main island and made an infinite water source, as well as planting down some of the sugarcane that I got in the starter chest, when I realized that I was starting to get just a little bit hungry. So I grabbed some water and began making my way back over to the mangrove island, where I spotted a singular tropical fish. But it didn't even matter, because when I took him down, he didn't drop anything edible at all. Nothing. So I began making my way over from the mangrove island towards the shipwreck in hopes of it having some form of food, because our farming situation is really not going to cut it right now, and that fish literally just scammed me. Once I'd managed to bridge directly over the ship, I dropped a water bucket and headed down. However, when I got to the bottom, the weather took a turn for the worst and it started raining squids. I know, what a weird world we live in. Anyways, torrential squid rain aside, I headed down to the ship, where I luckily found a bunch of wheat and carrots along with some coal, moss, and a buried treasure map that, I'm not gonna lie, I don't think it's gonna be very useful. I mean, call me ungrateful, alright, whatever, but, I mean, where are you gonna find it in the void, alright? There's no treasure out here, there's no beaches. Now, after grabbing all the loot from the ship, I realized that it was starting to get dark, and I really didn't want to test the theory of the buried treasure being very deep down into the void by getting shot off my bridge by a skelly, so I decided to spend the night over here, and, well, it's a good thing that I did, because I found a third chest that had some iron and other materials in it. Now, the other materials I could really take or leave, I don't really care about it, but overall, this shipwreck was a great idea. I know, I'm a genius, you don't need to tell me. And so, after spending the night cooped up in the ship, I began making my way back to the island as soon as I caught a glimpse of daylight. Once I got back, I stored all the loot from the ship away, before mining up some more cobble for a little while, and then did a little bit of cleaning up of the island, by really just replacing some of the dirt with cobblestone, and using it to expand out our tiny little tree farm, as well as make an actual farm that I know looks absolutely atrocious, but it's all I've got right now, and it will get the job done. Anyways, I planted down some of the wheat and carrots from the ship, as well as building up a little shelter/shack thing just in case phantoms decided they were going to spawn, but other than that, I literally just spent the night mining up even more cobble. Just the classic skyblock nights. Ah, I love them. And so, on the morning of day 4, I put all of last night's cobble mining to use and made a little mob farm, aka a completely flat platform with absolutely no light. Oh, you have no idea how long it took me to say flat platform, flat. You see what I mean? I can't say it. Anyway, back to the video, Now, I did add a little janky kind of safe area to the platform so that I couldn't fall off as easily. And I also finally made a furnace so that I can cook up some wood into coal so that I can make some torches. After putting some wood on the grill, I began to work on the start of the actual base/island, but needed a whole bunch more wood to finish it off. So this is really all we're getting for now. After making a very small start on the base, I put some of the iron that I got yesterday to use by making some shears so that I can chop down some leaves for bone meal. Then also made an iron pick, because why not, before then deciding to use a couple of my brain cells, okay, this isn't common, and I made a shield, because I know if I didn't, some of you would be really annoyed with me for making shears and a pickaxe but not making a shield. So don't worry, this time I got you. Anyways, I began work on a bridge over to some ocean ruins off in the distance before eventually heading back to the island as night fell in hopes of using my new mob farm to get some skellies and spiders so that I can finally make a bed. And well, by the morning of day 5, I'd essentially wasted the entire night by farming mobs because the platform that I made was absolutely terrible and all I had to show for it was a half-broken bow, 1 spider eye, and 2 arrows. Absolute insanity, that was. Absolute waste of time. Now, with that tragedy out of the way, I decided to finish off the bridge over to the ocean ruins in hopes that they might have some good loot and no drowns, because I mean, there's no water, so how would they be there? Now, the loot over here was overall decent, I guess. It just mainly consisted of a lot of coal and wheat, as well as a fishing rod and a second treasure map, as well as some leather and some gold drip. Now, whilst hunting down for the last chests over here, I did end up wasting a piece of my precious iron on a shovel because my stone one broke, only to find an enchanted book with Curse of Vanishing on it that I very quickly made disappear. After being pretty sure that I got all that there was to loot over here, I made my way back to the island, and while storing the loot away, I noticed that I ended up amassing quite a lot of gravel from the ocean ruins, and that's going to be super useful later on in getting a bunch more dirt. But for now, it's time to spend another night mining cobble and hoping for mobs to spawn. And well, I guess last night's mob drops were better than yesterday's, but still, I only ended up with 2 strings, so I decided enough was enough, and it was time to invest in an actual mob farm. Just so then, when it's built, I can get it out of the way, and we never have to worry about mob drops. However, to build said mob farm, we need a whole bunch of cobble, so I spent the entirety of the day at the cobblestone generator just grabbing as much as I could, before then clearing out some squatters from the old mob farm and starting on the build. Now, I realized whilst building this that I haven't built one of these things in like over a year, but I'm not going to bore you by talking you through how to build one of these because, come on, I'm pretty sure 99% of everybody watching this video knows how to build a very basic mob farm. So I guess while Past Poppers is working his way up through building the new mob farm, I'll tell you that I bought another frog, like later last year. He's an absolute unit. I mean, just look at this guy. He has absolutely no thoughts. And I also acquired a 4th cat. I have too many of them, but she's cute, and she's the most overly friendly creature in the world. She's lovely. I like her. She's cute. Look at that cat. Nice cat. Anyways, new pets aside, I ended up running out of materials after getting the majority of the farm done, so I spent the night of day 7 back at the cobble gen, and headed back up to finish things off on day 8. Now, I did have to wait a little while for a bunch of mobs that had ended up spawning on top to burn away, but that means that this is already working better than whatever I had before, and it's only half finished. Now, I ended up getting the whole thing finished and up and running by the evening of day 8, and, well, you know that when you just built a mob farm, you gotta spend some time farming it out, so that's what I did for the rest of the day. Oh, and I also found out that fish spawn in any water placed here, so I guess that's a useful, quick source of food if I ever need it. And well, by the morning of day 9, we were absolutely stacked on mob drops, including some string, because apparently the anti-spider technology trapdoors that I placed up there were clearly not working. However, I'm not going to complain because I can actually sleep now. Anyways, I put the dirt that I got from the ocean ruins to use by making some coarse dirt to essentially double the amount of dirt we had, but really quickly noticed that I really didn't have much floor space to do this efficiently on, so I decided to get back to work on the main platform. Now, I know, alright, surprise, surprise, it's a circle. How original, poppers. But look, alright, everybody does circles, but it's for a reason, okay? Circles look good. Originality of my build aside, I actually ended up running out of wood, so I quickly chopped down a few more trees and tried to get the first part of the build finished today, but then some phantoms spawned in, so I literally ran to my bed as fast as I could. After enjoying my morning entertainment, it was back to work on the platform, where I once again very quickly ran out of wood. So I took a little break to have a little look around at the other outer islands that were neighboring mine, just to see if there was really anything interesting, and, well, there wasn't. However, I did spot a spruce tree island out there, which will be super useful later, because, you know, your boy loves spruce wood. It was birch, but spruce has taken that top spot in recent years. Though birch is still a goated wood, and I won't hear slander on birch's name. I won't have it! I won't have it! You don't slander birch in my comment section. I'm telling you, don't do it! Anyways, once I was done gazing off into the distance, I remembered that we actually had a mob farm with a whole bunch of bones just sitting in a chest, so I went and grabbed them, made some bone meal, and grabbed a whole bunch more wood to finish off the platform. Then once it was done, I went around throwing down a bunch of torches to avoid accidentally creating a second mob farm. And now with that done, we have one big wooden circle to add to the absolute mess of this entire place. But don't worry, it will begin to come together and look good soon enough. But for now, it's gonna stay as just a circle. And now, with the first segment of the build out of the way, I put the new space to good use and used it to dupe up a whole bunch more dirt, as well as making another iron pickaxe that I then put to use by mining up cobblestone all night. As soon as the sun arose on day 11, I decided it was time to check out whatever the nether had in store for me, because I was kinda curious of whether it was going to be a standard normal nether or an empty void like the overworld. So I built up the portal in a perfectly planned place that will definitely not impact my build later down the line, and headed in to find that it was nothing. It was exactly the same as the overworld with a few random islands scattered around. Except this time it's a little bit more annoying to get anywhere because I can't use a water bucket to get to anything below me. So I locked down the portal and began heading over to some basalt delta looking rocks off in the distance because they didn't look like the other islands around, and I hoped that they might have something good. But once I got over there, I quickly realized that was not the case, and I indeed got scammed because there was absolutely nothing over here. So I took the short walk back to the portal and headed back home. I'll deal with the nether later. Because honestly, I have no idea how I'm supposed to find a fortress in the conditions that have been placed upon me. Once I got back home, I took down a few more trees and then took a couple swings at the mob farm when I remembered something. Now, if you've been following the channel for a while, and by a while I mean like 2 or 3 years, then first off, thank you and I love you. But second, you might remember that I used an absolutely giga-brain strat in my original one way back when, where I used a witch to turn a zombie villager into, well, an actual villager, and I know that villagers do actually spawn naturally in this world, but let's be real, alright? What are the chances of me finding a naturally spawned village in this desolate void? I don't see it happening. So I think that the old-fashioned big giga-brain strat is the best way to go. However, for that strategy to work, we're gonna need some more gold. So instead of spending the day building a pig farm in the nether, I decided to head over to another shipwreck in hopes of it having at least 4. Now, as I closed in on the shipwreck, I began hearing the whooshing sounds of the horrid sea devils over at the ocean monument, so I made sure to keep my distance, and once I arrived on the ship, I took down a couple of mobs, looted up a couple of chests, getting some new drip and some potatoes, before then waiting out the night here, and continued to look for the third chest in the morning, eventually finding it, and oh boy, was this thing stacked with loot, including more than enough gold and a bunch of other goodies. So I headed back home, crafted up the gapples as well as planting down some potatoes, and now begins the absolutely hellishly tedious task of getting a witch to spawn and doing all the stuff with the villagers. But before that, I did actually expand out the platform underneath the mob farm a little bit, just to make things, like, somewhat safer for when I'm transporting the witch and villagers around. There's less chance of me dying here now. And with the platform now expanded a little, it was time to get to grinding. And by that, I mean it's time to get a witch almost immediately, and then almost get game-ended by a bunch of skellies whilst trying to secure it in a boat. After healing up, I eventually got it in a boat and behind a wall so that it can't hit me, and just like that, now all we need is a singular zombie villager. But I was running quite low on food, so I farmed up some potatoes, threw them on the grill, and then got back to grinding mobs, finding yet another witch that ended up dropping me a potion of healing, so that was nice. After spending the entire night farming out mobs and accidentally taking down 2 zombie villagers in the process, the sun arose on day 13 with me still at the mob farm because I don't want to stop just yet, because I really don't want to go through the trauma of recapturing a witch and I just want to get this out of the way. So I spent the entire day here at the mob farm just praying for a singular zombie villager to spawn. And well, on that very night, this happened. Is that one in there? There's one in there. Yes! Yes! Oh, finally, it's been so long. Please. Alright, I need to not hit him at all. Please. Oh, no. No. Oh, wait, there's 2. Wait, is that... It is? Oh, this is perfect. This is absolutely amazing. Okay, now I just need to clear out the ruckus from in there. Ow. Careful, careful. In the boat. In this boat. There we go. Amazing. Right. Okay, this is brilliant. This is perfect. Yes! So now it came time to bait the witch into throwing a weakness potion, which is way easier said than done, but with enough patience and close calls, it eventually happened, and I now have officially cured my first villager. Well, kinda. He still has to cook for a little while, but he's good. He's good. We have him now. So while our new friend was marinating, it was time to grab some gold and make another gapple for our second guy. So I chopped down a bunch of trees for some materials and headed into the nether, where I once again decided to create a mob farm platform that just didn't work at all. However, I did spot a ruined portal at the end of my nether bridge and decided that I could get the gold from there, but that was until I got close and realized that it was absolutely crawling with nether dogs. So that was a no-go because I will not survive that. However, on the plus side, I did spot a nether fortress right next to it, so I guess that trip wasn't for nothing. Once I got back home, I decided to take on a new strategy to get gold by taking out mobs until they drop armor and then smelting it down until we get enough nuggets to make an ingot and then go from there. I'm joking. That thought did occur to me, but that would take way too long. So instead, I just checked in on the villager who was now cured and headed to bed. On day 15, I had a thought that was so dark, so gruesome that it sent a shiver down my very spine. Because I remembered that there was another ruined portal nearby, and it's located at a place where no man should set foot. And no, it's not the ocean monument, not at all. It's just right next to the ocean monument. So I made a brand new iron pick, grabbed some more wood, and began bridging over to hell on earth. Once I arrived at the precipice, I took a deep breath and prayed to every known god before jumping into the water and heading down to the portal. Not wanting to spend a second longer down here than I needed to, I immediately grabbed the gold block and even looted the chest that was kinda caca by the way, before quickly swimming back out as fast as possible and making my way back to my bridge. And, well, all things considered, that went pretty well. I barely took any damage at all, which is really not what I expected. Well, physical damage anyway. Mentally, I'm scarred every time I see one of those things or hear one with a little bling, bling, or whatever they make. I hate it. I hate them so much. I hate Guardians, man. So now, with the gold secured, I headed back home, hoping that my zombie and witch had not despawned. And, well, once I got back, I was pleasantly surprised to see both still there. So I crafted up the second gapple and began the whole process over again, almost immediately losing everything to the boat zombie whilst trying to get him into position. But after healing, it was a rinse and repeat of the first time by just trying to bait the witch and taking a bunch of damage while doing so, and hiding and healing up. and eventually the witch did end up complying with me and threw the weakness potion, and voila, we now have 2 zombie villagers and no witches because she had no further use to me. As I awoke on day 16, the second villager was still very zombified, so whilst I waited for him to turn, I made the first guy a Fletcher and traded up some sticks with him. And then spent a good while organising the storage whilst checking up to see if our new green friend was looking, well, less green. And the second time I checked on him, he was actually cured, so I brought him over to the first guy and continued sorting out the storage for a little while before then spending the rest of the day chopping down trees to stack up on as much wood as possible, because I really need to get some money as well as build these 2 a safer place to reside. After the wood chopping session, I managed to amass quite a bit of ye old oak wood, so I got to work on creating a little safer area for the villagers so that I could start to breed them ASAP. Now, this ain't no 5-star luxury resort just yet, but it will keep them safe and make me rich in the process, so really, they don't need much more. So, after getting the villagers set up in their new abode and placing down a couple of beds in there, I farmed up a whole bunch of potatoes and graciously gave some of them to the villagers. Before then exhausting every single stick trade that I could do today to stack up on some more of those beautiful, beautiful emeralds. Then I hit up the mob farm for some more string that I immediately got and used to make another bed for the villagers, and spent the rest of the day restocking on cobblestone whilst waiting for the villagers to breed. Now, nothing much really happened on day 18. I was being real lazy. I mean, really all I did was I traded with the villagers a little bit, I farmed out the mob farm whilst just really waiting for the villagers to breed. However, I did put the big platform to use by using it to farm out a bunch more trees faster. But other than that, literally nothing happened. I guess I was just in waiting mode for a new villager. And well, by the morning of day 19, we'd added yet another villager to our collection. Although it wasn't really any use to us just yet, I did make him a smithing table and put it down in there so that as soon as he is able to work, he'll be ready. So whilst waiting for our new arrival to become useful to me, I did some more work on the main home island, by finishing off a layer of planks going around the side of it and starting on the second bigger circle encompassing the first. But very quickly found out that the nether portal that I built earlier was, well, in a very terrible position and essentially stopped me from doing any more work on the island whilst it was there. So instead of building, I decided to make a dirt path leading all the way up to the actual main island just to try and get some grass spreading up there, and then did some more trading with the villagers, stacking up on even more emeralds. Now, I did have to stop off at the mob farm real quick because I had to cull it because things were getting way too out of hand over there and it was getting really loud. But it was a good thing I did stop off over there because I ended up getting some more string that I used to make yet another bed for the villagers. Then, in the morning, I put the cobble that I mined up the other day to use and bridged over to some more ocean ruins over by the first shipwreck that we found, just to see if there was anything interesting over here as well, but also to stack up on some gravel. And well, let me tell you, it is a good thing that I was mainly coming over here for the gravel because the chests that I found were garbage. They literally had nothing useful in them. But on the bright side, I did get quite a bit of gravel from over here, so I was happy with that at least. Now, just before leaving the ruins, I did find a final chest with an enchanted book that had Density 2 in it. I have no clue what that book does, or if it's any use to me whatsoever, but I have it now. Anyways, after grabbing the mysterious book, I headed my way back home to find that the villager was still a child, so I stored what little loot I got away, and was literally about to head to bed when I found the villager had grown up along with another child spawning in. So, hey, I guess I'll take it, that's more money for me. In the morning, I immediately put our new friend to work as a toolsmith and began leveling him up, because, you know, I'm an absolute genius, and now I need a diamond pickaxe to move the nether portal that I built days ago, just to continue the build. And so, after a good while of trading back and forth with this guy, we eventually got him to start trading iron tools, that I immediately put to use by grabbing an axe and chopping down a whole bunch more trees so that I have a little bit more capital to trade with. And so, by the following morning, the Fletchers had restocked and I managed to get enough emeralds to have the toolsmith sell us our very first diamond tool, that just so happened to be an axe. So you know what that means. Yep, it's time to go and chop down even more trees because I need even more money. Now, I know I've essentially spent the past couple days chopping trees and trading, but it's all good because by the end of day 22, we had our very first diamond pickaxe, as well as another fully grown villager that we can soon put to work as an armorer, but for now, we can take a break from trading for a little while. On day 23, after spending last night mining up a whole bunch of cobble, I immediately tore down the nether portal and rebuilt it in a better place, and well, I don't really think it's a better place, but it's no longer in the way, so I don't have to worry about it. And so, with the portal moved, I headed back into the nether and immediately got to work on a basic, and I mean very basic, because I just have a whole bunch of apples sitting in a chest at home, and it would be a real shame not to use them to craft up some gapples, especially with the nether being the way it is. I just know that that fortress is going to be overflowing with all manner of annoyances and horrors, so it just made sense. Anyways, after finishing off the gold farm, I secured the portal a little more and was really pleasantly surprised to see that it started working literally immediately. Now, it did spawn a whole bunch of hoglins, but there were pigmen in there, so I'll take what I can get at this point. It's still faster than hunting down ruined portals. On the morning of day 25, I headed back home with my pig gold in hand and crafted up a bunch more gapples. Then headed over to the mob farm in hopes of getting a singular piece of iron to drop from a zombie so that I can make a blast furnace for our new villager. But almost immediately remembered that I had iron nuggets in the chest, so I just used them instead. Then cooked up a little bit of stone to get our furnace and also crafted another bed for the villagers in the process. And well, I got back to trading, and I know, alright, I promise this will be the last of it for the minute, so I'll just skip over it real quick to when he actually sells some armor, which surprisingly didn't take too long with us getting our first 2 pieces later that night. And well, by morning, all I needed to do was make a couple more trades, and boom, full diamond. That easy. It's just so easy with villagers, I love it. After getting all of our armor and feeling much safer, I headed back into the nether to take on the fortress. Upon my arrival, however, I very quickly realized that I shouldn't be just running around on top of it this time around because there were a lot of mobs roaming around, so I didn't want to take that risk and instead began making some trenches through the underside. Just solely down to the fact that then I can actually move around safely, or as safe as I can get in here. After a while of tunneling my way through the fortress, I actually managed to get underneath a blaze spawner so that I can farm it out later, and then decided to head into the lower levels of the fortress in search of any good loot. And well, I immediately found a chest with 3 diamonds in it, as well as some nether wart and a saddle. Then immediately after that, witnessed a betrayal. For some reason, I don't know, I guess they had beef, but yeah, things didn't go well for that guy. Poor guy. Anyways, I headed deeper into the fortress, fighting my way through hordes of wither skellies and other very aggressive nether natives, finding a couple more chests along the way, as well as a wither skeleton skull that I didn't know I picked up, so I guess I'm lucky this time around, though I don't really have any plans to take on the wither. After exploring the fortress for a little while longer, I found a nether wart room and decided to take all of that plus the soul sand, and then thought it was time to call it a day in here and began heading back home. After storing all the loot from the nether away, on day 29 it was time to head back over to the hellscape known as the Ocean Monument, because I needed some obsidian from the ruined portal over there so that I can actually make an enchantment table. So once again I swiftly made my way down to the portal, grabbed all the obby I needed, and got out as fast as possible. Once I got back home I made the enchantment table and a few bookshelves with the help of the leather I got from the hoglins in the nether. And then spent the rest of the day chopping trees because I need to get to work on the main island, and to do that I need a lot of wood. And I really wanted to get at least the base outline of it all finished off as soon as possible. And so on day 30, work on the build finally continued with me outlining and filling in the entirety of the second circle. Now, I'll point out real quick that I'm only using wood as a base material because it's super fast to get, and I'll add details and change things up later, but for now, it's the fastest way I can go through it. Also, don't mind that fire breaking out, it's fine, just don't pay attention to it, because I sure as hell didn't for a good while. It was a minor setback, okay? Oh, and I also did some dirt duping to replace some of the wood on the first circle, but didn't get too much of it replaced before running out. On the following morning, I headed back over to some ocean ruins from earlier because I really needed a whole bunch more gravel to make more dirt. And after essentially taking all the gravel from this place, I decided to put the wooden slabs I had on me to use and began bridging out beyond the ruins for a while just to see if there was anything interesting lurking just outside my render distance. And I mean, I did find a lush cave chunk thing, but other than that, there was absolutely nothing. It was literally like playing original Skyblock. I found absolutely nothing out here. It was crazy. On the following morning, I decided to head out in the opposite direction past the ocean monument and almost immediately spotted a stronghold-looking structure off in the distance that actually ended up being a trial chamber. Now, believe it or not, I still have never done one of these things, so I thought that it'd be a fun exercise and decided to head over to see what it was all about. The first enemy I came across was a whole bunch of silverfish that couldn't even hit me, so that was simple enough, and I even got a trial key for my troubles that I immediately used to get a bad omen potion that I don't really know how useful it's going to be for me, but hey, I'll take it. I didn't even know these came in potion form, man. I'm so behind. Oh, and whilst I was in here, I also went around breaking every single pot in sight because they had some pretty good loot in them that I wouldn't really care about in a normal world, but up here in the abyss, I'll take anything that I can get. So, after clearing out the first room of all of its loot, I headed deeper inside, getting into a fight with some strays that I swiftly cleaned up and then looted their entire room before moving even deeper. And being stunned by just how big these things actually are, like I didn't know how big they were, but either way, my amazement was cut short by a horde of zombies and some silverfish that met the same fate as everything else I'd faced by this point. But after wiping out those riffraff, it was back to my favourite part, looting, because I am a loot goblin, we all know this. After clearing out a whole bunch more strays, I ended up finding some eggs in a dispenser that I guess could be useful if I ever want to make a chicken farm, but I don't see myself wanting to, so I have eggs now. So after a little bit more looting, my inventory was practically overflowing, so I decided it was time to head back home because I really want to take everything that this place has to offer. After storing away all the trial chamber loot, on day 37 I crafted a diamond sword to replace the stone one that I'd been using up until this point, and fed the villagers a little before using up the gravel that I got to dupe up a whole bunch more dirt, and just spent the rest of the day placing it down and duping it up, essentially. I did a lot of dirt stuff on day 37. But as soon as the sun arose on day 38, I headed straight back over to the trial chamber to finish what I'd started. However, when I got back over there, I noticed that all the spawners that I cleared out previously were active again. However, I'm not going to complain about it because that's just more loot and XP for me. And so, after clearing out all of the mobs that I'd already taken down once again, I finally came across my first breeze spawner, and well, these things were really not hard at all, and I don't know why I thought they'd be hard, or whether they were supposed to be, but either way, I took them out real quick. But oh boy, the next fight I had with them had a bunch of strays in it, and it was hella annoying, so I guess they're a little bit more difficult when you're constantly getting slowed and blasted around the room by them, but we survived, I got the loot, it's all good. So, after clearing out the trial chamber for essentially a second time, I used up a bunch of the trial keys that I got whilst clearing the place out, and then proceeded to steal 4 beds that were just so graciously left here for me, and headed back home to store away all of the loot. Once the loot was secured, I got to work on expanding out the villager breeding area a little bit because they really needed the extra space because I have nowhere to place these beds. After essentially making my villagers free-ranged, I fed them a little bit and then headed over to the mob farm and spent the night there because I need to get rid of it because it's in the way of the build. And also it's an absolute eyesore, but it has to go because I can't finish the build with it here, so bye-bye mob farm. And after a hard night of grinding up mobs, the time had come to say goodbye to the spawner. It served me well over these past 30-ish days, but it's an eyesore and it's in the way of my build, so it's gotta go. Now, in reality, I have no clue whether it's more annoying to build one of these things or take it down, because both are really tedious, but I guess it doesn't matter because I absolutely tore this thing down and it was completely gone by midnight. And so now, with the mob farm gone and out of the way, it was time for me to get back to building, so that at the very least I could get the base outline finished, and then we can actually get to work on making things look nice. Now, let's just say it's a good thing that I have so much wood for this, because I needed an obscene amount. But eventually, we finished off the 3rd or 4th circle. I don't even know anymore, I've lost count, but either way I finished a circle and got to work on making even more circles. 4 of them, in fact, 1 in each direction that I plan to use as storage, villager homes, etc., just anything that I can put in them. Now, for some reason, I really struggled initially with building these things because I couldn't get the size right, but eventually, after a little trial and error, I finally nailed it down and got them all finished off. And then it came time to build up a wall around the whole place, and I really don't know if I'm going to change this later, but it was really expensive to build, but it'll do for now. After finishing off the walls, it was the moment you've all been waiting for. It was time to build yet another circle. However, this is no ordinary circle, as this is the Giga Circle, bigger than any I'd built previously. This was the circle, the big papa of all circles, at least in this world. I have built bigger ones in different worlds, but this time it ain't getting any bigger. Now, yet again, for some reason, I struggled getting this the right size and the placement of the blocks. It was really confusing and gave me a bunch of trouble, but eventually, I did end up getting there in the end and got the outline finished out, as well as filled in a little bit of it, and then decided to call it a day for building right now. After finishing off the building for now, on day 46 I headed over to the Dark Oak and Spruce Tree Islands nearby so that we can have some variety of woods to use for building later on. And whilst heading over to one of these islands, I remembered that I have a world map mod installed to help me look around the world to see if there's any islands near me that I completely forgot about until now. So yeah, that's a thing. Also, whilst looking through the map, I found that there are 5 ocean monuments on it. As if the one next to my house wasn't enough, there are 4 others. I can't get away from them, man. Anyways, after getting the saplings and wood from both trees, I headed back home and placed them down, as well as farmed them out a little bit, just to, get a little sapling population built up. Unfortunately though, whilst farming them out, I realized that I didn't actually have enough dark oak saplings to grow a tree, so I guess we only get spruce, but that's fine because spruce is the goat anyway. After getting the sapling population up a little bit, I made our first 3 Eyes of Ender and then spent the night back in the nether at the pig farm, but this time for leather instead of gold. In the morning, I made a smoker to get some of the pork chops cooking up a little bit quicker, as well as making another gapple and a lectern, because I realized that I really don't have much lapis, and I have no clue how I'm supposed to get any more of it, so using the enchantment table really isn't the most efficient way to do things. So instead, I decided to take advantage of my villager friends and placed it down in there so that I can have a librarian if or when they eventually breed again. But for that, obviously I need a bunch more emeralds and 1 more villager, so I farmed up a whole bunch of potatoes, fed them to them, as well as clearing out all of the stick trays for the day. That was made so much easier now that I have spruce trees because they just give so much wood. Now, after a while of trading, I decided to buy a Power 2 bow from one of the Fletchers and then made a bunch of Flight Duration 3 fireworks, I guess just to be prepared for when I eventually get the Elytra, along with making an anvil so that I can actually make my gear a little bit better, and then spent the rest of the night chopping wood and waiting for the villagers to breed once again. By the morning of day 48, I'd accidentally made a beehive with all the tree farming that I did last night, but don't expect them to stick around too long because in every Skyblock world, these guys literally just fly off into the sunset or down to their deaths in the void, so enjoy them while you can. They really won't be around long. Anyways, I decided that it was time to clear up and pack away the cobble generator for a while because I really wasn't using it right now and really wanted to avoid a repeat of the fire that happened earlier. So I cleared up the generator and tidied up the area around it, and then went and made some more bank from the villagers, before continuing to fill in the last circle with wood that I got from last night's gathering session, whilst waiting for the villagers to breed still. In the morning, I did some more stick trading, but there was still no baby villager, so I decided to head up to the big platform and throw our first eye, that ended up falling straight off the map, but it's okay because now I actually know where I'm going. After losing the eye to the void, I headed back over to the ocean monument and grabbed up a bunch of obby from the portal that's over there because it's going to be a lot faster to find this stronghold by going through the nether. Because with the amount of bridging that I'm going to have to do to find this place, the extra ground that I'm going to cover in the nether is going to be so worth it because I am not bridging potentially thousands of blocks in the overworld. It ain't happening. Anyways, I got all the obsidian but was too short. However, I can just get that from the other side of the nether portal that we already have. And whilst making my way back home, I spotted a bee just chilling down in the void. You see, I told you this would happen. They do it every single time and I knew they won't last long. Bees aside, however, I grabbed a bunch of wood and headed back into the nether to begin the journey to find the stronghold. And after bridging for I don't even know how long over our certain demise in the voidy pits of the nether, I decided to try my luck and threw down a portal just to see how much closer we actually were. And well, I came out of the other side right next to yet another ocean monument. I tell you, this game loves torturing me. However, there was a trial chamber nearby, so I guess it wasn't all that bad. But either way, I threw another eye and found out that I'd actually gone too far, so I headed back through the portal and built another one just a little bit further back on my nether bridge. And once I went through it, this time the eye went straight and I decided to stay in the overworld to bridge over to it because it's just going to be impossible to miss it if I just bridge straight in the overworld from here. After another eternity of bridging over the endless void, I spotted yet another trial chamber that was very quickly followed by the stronghold, or at least whatever's left of it, right above the chamber. So I decided that the best course of action was to wait until morning up here because there was a literal army of every single imaginable mob down there and I don't really want to fight that right now. So after all of the mobs had burned away, I headed down to the stronghold and immediately began looting up the place. Getting a singular pearl and absolute caca from the first couple chests I looted, but then, out of nowhere, one of the best library chests I think I have possibly ever looted in a stronghold. I mean, just look at this. It's beautiful. I love it. This was nice. After clearing the place out of all the loot, I headed straight to the portal room, took out the silverfish spawner, and found out that I was gonna need 11 eyes. So I really needed to get to work on deleting some endermen. And to do that, I decided to build a little platform right above the portal to farm them out because I did see a couple that were spawned in last night whilst waiting for the sun to come up. So I sat up here waiting for night to fall, and I mean, they definitely spawned, but it was really janky and really hard to fight them up here because they just get stuck below, down to the lack of room that's actually on my platform. So I need some more materials to make this place much easier to work with. So when the sun began coming up on day 54, I headed back home, put sharpness 4 on my sword, and then stacked up on some blocks and headed straight back to the stronghold to make the platform a lot more usable. And I mean, that night, things definitely went better, but I still didn't get enough pearls, but I mean, it is still significantly better than the day before. In the morning, I headed straight back home and started cooking up some potions of fire resistance, because if I'm going to be fighting Blaze, it's probably the least I could do to make it more manageable this time around with all of the other delinquents in the fortress. So I cooked the potions up and extended them with redstone, and then headed back into the nether and over towards the blade spawner that I tunneled under earlier and tried my best to secure it. And I mean, I did end up popping a gapple while here, but it was completely my fault and ended up getting all the rods I needed extremely quickly, so everything went fine. I did lose a gapple though. So, once all the blaze rods were acquired, I headed back over to the stronghold and spent the night farming out more endermen and ended up getting all of the remaining pearls I needed. On day 56, while still over at the stronghold, I crafted up all the eyes that I could with the materials on me and placed them down in the portal before heading back home, where I then traded for a full, fresh set of diamond armor because my old stuff was being held together by hot glue and sticks at this point, and then combined the two sets together for a very tiny, and I mean very, very tiny upgrade. But I mainly did it for the durability because I have more than enough XP to waste on that right now. After getting my armor nice and cleaned up, I crafted up some more eyes and did a few stick trades, and then spent the rest of the day chopping down more trees until nightfall, because I really wanted to get a phantom membrane so that I could cook myself up some slow falling potions to help with the dragon fight. After getting my hands on a couple membranes, I cooked up the potions before heading to bed. And in the morning, the time had finally come to take on the dragon. So I spent a little while grabbing all the things I'd need for the fight, and once I was stocked up, I made my way back to the stronghold, placed down the last eyes, popped my potions, and headed in. Now, I really don't think that I've ever spawned this low down in the end before. I was literally buried beneath the island. It was really low. But anyways, back on track, I made my way up to the surface and took down every single one of the towers with extreme precision, not missing a single shot. And I mean, that's technically true because I missed way more than one, but we're just going to cut all that out so I look better. After all of the towers were dealt with, I took my absolutely cracked aim to the dragon while it was just flying around the place, griefing a bunch of endermen that it made really mad, but they could never catch up to it, so I decided to be a good Samaritan and help them out by completely wiping out an entire species and putting an end to the dragon. Hey, do you get it? Ender dragon, end to the dragon, end to dragon. Moving on. After putting down the dragon and making a terrible joke that probably made a lot of people want to put me down, I immediately headed for the portal to the outer islands because I need that elytra now, so that I never have to build another bridge in this video again. Well, I mean, except this one, but after that, I'm done. After this one, I'm done. This is the last bridge. Now, I actually ended up spawning right next to a city, if you can even call it that, because it was literally just one tiny, useless building, so I didn't even give it the time of day, and began searching for a true city. That took about 30 seconds, because literally after walking not even 100 blocks, I spotted a big one off in the distance that came with a ship. So I made my way over to it and immediately towered my way up to the ship, taking out the shulkers inside and securing my elytra, as well as getting a little bit of extra loot for my time. And now, with the elytra in my possession, I decided to check if this place had any good loot, but didn't really find anything too crazy, so after a little while of looting, I just headed back to the portal to the main island and then took the main portal back home. Once I got back home, I sorted through all the loot and equipped some of the new armor because it was a nice little upgrade, before then spending what little was left of the day chopping down even more trees. Because I really needed to get to work on the build because I still, to this day, do not have a home. And so on day 60, I finally got back to work on filling in the final circle. Now, I'm going to be honest with you, I really didn't intend for this build to come out as big as it is. I got the dimensions slightly wrong and it ended up becoming a lot bigger than I intended, but either way, by the end of the day, the final circle was completely filled in and lit up so that we don't have to worry about any uninvited guests. On day 61, I needed a whole bunch of stuff for the build, so I headed over to the jungle tree island and grabbed some vines as well as taking down the whole tree to get some saplings, and then made my way back to the stronghold to stack up on some stone and mossy stone bricks. Now, I do have some cobblestone cooking up in the furnace, but grabbing them from here is just going to get it done much faster. After stacking up on bricks, I headed back home, taking the shortcut through the end portal, and once I got back, I crafted up a bunch of these stone windmill-designed paths, and stored them away in the new dedicated building chest, before then heading out in search of an azalea tree because I really need the leaves. Now, whilst I was out, I did stop off and grab some gravel from some ocean ruins, as well as looted up a couple of ruined portals, but I did not find any azalea trees. So I headed back towards the home island and decided to go out and search in the opposite way when I very quickly turned back around because I remembered that I had some moss in a chest back home. So I immediately headed back, and after a little while of bone meal magic, we now have azalea leaves. Day 62 was spent pretty much entirely gathering up as many materials as I could get my hands on for the rest of the build. We're talking azalea leaves, dirt, gravel, dirt duping, as well as a bunch more stone paths. Oh, and I also flew around everywhere trying to get as much sand as I could from these weird sand pillar things just chilling out here in the void that actually turned out to be buried treasure, so I guess I was wrong earlier when I said that there won't be any out here. Now, whilst I was out gathering what little sand I could, I also found this archaeology place thingy, whatever it is, but I prefer to call it the motherlode of dirt and gravel, because, well, that's exactly what it was. There was so much here, and I don't think that I'm ever gonna run out thanks to this place. And then, over the following few days, I got to work on adding some details to the build so that things can eventually start looking less like a giant barren wooden circle. First off, I took down a bunch of trees in the middle so that the actual replay camera could see, and then moved on to the actual work by creating 4 paths leading from the center of the circle and connecting to the start of the outer one, and then began placing some dirt down, filling in as much of the second circle as possible. Now, even with the obscene amount that we already had, I only managed to get just over 2 of the segments completely filled in, and that got us just over halfway, so I'll come back to finish that a little later. Once I ran out of dirt, I made a whole bunch of fences and placed them down before spending a literal eternity waterlogging a bunch of slabs around the outer side of the second circle. And I know this probably just looks like I'm running around aimlessly, but believe me, I was working hard to get this done. It was so annoying. Literally all I was doing was running back and forth with a water bucket for every single block. It was probably one of the most boring parts of a build I have ever done. Water trauma aside, that night I headed back over to the dirt motherlode and restocked, grabbing as much as I could carry, and then took it all home to dupe it all up. Before then placing it all down in the morning, completely filling in the second circle with dirt, and having to repeat the entire waterlogging process again. Then, on the following morning, I got to work on making even more paths, but this time in the dirt around the entirety of the second circle, connecting it all together, as well as planting down a whole bunch of crops. And then I decided to call things a day for the build right now because I managed to get quite a bit finished. After that very long building session that was way longer for me than it was for you, I decided to head over to another trial chamber because I think they're really fun and I also get a whole bunch of iron from them that I'm gonna need when I need to make some lanterns. So after making my way through the chamber and fighting off multiple hordes of mobs as well as shutting down all the spawners, it was looting time. So I went around the whole place, breaking all of the pots that I could, and taking everything from the barrel/chests that was of any use to me. I even found a diamond pick and an enchanted diamond chestplate too, that I was extremely surprised about, because like I said, I'd never done one of these things before this video, so I had no clue that you could even get diamond gear from them. I would have probably spent less time trading for it earlier if I did know that you could get diamond stuff from these places. Anyways, after looting the place up and finding a hidden chest with a block of iron and a cake in it, I was pretty sure that I'd taken all this place had to offer me and headed back home. And in the morning, I headed back up to the new farms and, well, farmed them out a little for a while just so that I can start to get things filled out so that they don't look so barren. Then I made a bunch of campfires and beehives and placed them down opposite to the farms just to add a little bit of life to the place. Now, I didn't actually have enough to cover all of the farms, but I'll get more later. After all the hives were placed, I used some bone meal on the grass around them, and now it's time. It is time for the one, the only, the absolute legendary storage day. Everybody loves it. It's the only reason anybody even watches these videos. I know, it's okay. I'd not watch either if storage day wasn't a reoccurring theme in these videos. I get it. All jokes aside though, I literally did spend the rest of the day moving all of my stuff from the messy chests under the base to my less messy chests above and in the new base. And on day 70, I began making my way back to the stronghold because I needed a whole bunch of end stone for something I had planned for the build. Once I got there, I headed straight in and spent a good while in here just mining up the stone. And once I'd amassed enough, I made my way to the outer end islands to grab up some chorus flowers as well as taking down a decent chunk of the little end city nearby the portal, before then heading back home. After storing all of the blocks I got from the end away in the building chest, I flew my way over to the nearby cherry tree island and took it down for the saplings, and then headed back home to dupe up even more dirt, because I still need an ungodly amount of it. And finally, after all the dirt was duped up, I spent the rest of the day, surprise surprise, gathering more wood. But then, over the following few days, work continued, with me bringing up the wooden wall by one block because I made it slightly too low, and then filled in one of the outer circle segments with dirt, and oh boy, am I so grateful for dirt duping, because without it, I really don't think I'd be able to get my hands on as much dirt as I need, or at least I wouldn't be able to get it anywhere near as fast. But once all the dirt was placed down, I moved on to placing down the end stone in another segment of the circle whilst waiting for grass to spread across the first. Once the second segment was completely filled with end stone, I dotted around a few chorus flowers and got to planting down and growing a bunch of cherry trees back on the first segment, as well as throwing down a bunch of these pink petals all over the floor, as well as adding some lanterns hanging from the trees. Then I fenced off the first two segments with the fences I made earlier, and now, with pretty much half of the outer circle finished, I headed down to the farms and built up some kind of wooden light things that I placed some lanterns on just to help brighten the place up a bit without using torches. And finally, to finish things off for now, I used the blocks that I took from the end city to build up my own little miniature end city in between the chorus flowers. And I mean, I think it came out looking alright. It could definitely look better, but it fits really well, and for a spur of the moment build, I think it works out pretty good. Day 77 was literally just another resource gathering day. You know, more dirt, gravel, and a bunch more oak wood once again. And then on day 78, it was straight back to building, because this thing needs to get done and finished off before day 100. So things started out this time with me filling in yet another segment of the outer circle with dirt, and once that was done, I placed down even more fences and replaced some of the ones I put down earlier with some grassy stone walls, because I just thought that they fit much better. Oh, and I also added some pebble paths around the farm paths, just to add a little bit more detail, because normal dirt paths look a little bit plain in my opinion. Anyways, after the fences and paths were done, I put some of the leaves that I had to use by placing them down around the wooden wall on the inside of the outer circle, if that makes any sense, just to add up a little bit more greenery and add a bit more colour. And then in the morning, I crafted up all of the white concrete powder that I could because I needed it for the house, but I really couldn't craft that much, so I headed back out just to fly around to find whatever little sand that there was out there, finding 3 of the buried treasure chest sand chunks right next to each other. Now, after grabbing up all the sand, I noticed that there was an ancient city quite close to home on the map, so I guess we can go and give that a look later on, but for now it's time to stack up on some more house building materials. So once I got back home, I did spend the rest of the day chopping down trees, however this time it was spruce and cherry trees, so we're switching it up a little bit. And then, on day 81, I finally got to work on actually building myself a house. Now, I really couldn't think of a house to build here that also fit with the actual build itself. Like, I had a bunch of ideas but couldn't really think of anything that would work really well, so I decided to go with a throwback. So once again, if you've been around for a while, like 3 or so years, you might recognize this house from the very first video on my channel, that just so happened to be my first 100 days. So yeah, this house is literally the same one that I used as my main base in that video, but I also thought it'd work well here. Now, it's not identical to the first house that I built, because I decided to change things up and go with pink, because I've got the cherry blossom trees, and, well, I'm not really built with cherry wood, so I think it looked quite nice. Now, I did also decide to replace some of the spruce wood on the build after I'd already built with it, with birch, because I thought that it'd go really well with the cherry wood, with it being so light, and also help me not overdo the pink. After getting the house built, I moved all of my main things inside, you know, bed, crafting table, furnace, etc., and then got to work on decorating the area outside, adding some grass paths and flowers, and boom, we now have an actual home. I guess it's better late than never. So on day 87, because I really didn't have any use of the spruce wood that I got, I just decided to break it down into sticks and did a little trading with the villagers to get some XP so that I could repair my elytra. And once it was fixed, I began making my way over to the ancient city that I spotted the other day, literally just to check if there was any nice loot. Now, the actual loot over here was pretty mid, and within like 30 seconds of my arrival, I ended up making way too much noise by just slamming my face into the floor while landing, and that ended up spawning the warden, so I very quickly left because I don't want that smoke for some mid loot that I didn't even really need right now. In the morning, I decided to place down the remaining dirt and moss I had in the final segment of the circle because I had an idea to make a mossy jungle type thing with a pond in it because I thought it'd look pretty nice there. After I ran out of dirt, I headed down to the farms and just finished filling those out before then making a bunch of trapdoors that I placed down along with some normal and flowering azalea leaves around the wooden wall. And by morning, the inner wall was looking a whole lot better, but there was still a lot more work to do. So I paid a couple more ocean ruins a visit to grab some more gravel so that I can dupe up some more dirt for the final time. Once I was stacked on gravel, I headed back home and planted down some jungle trees as well as some sugarcane before spending the night doing a final massive session of dirt duping. And then in the morning, the work on the mossy jungle began. Now, I really didn't have much of a plan in mind for how I wanted this to look. I just really wanted it to look as cluttered as possible with trees and grass. And I mean, I think I accomplished that. I'm quite happy with how things came out. However, looking back on it, I would have liked to have built like a mini jungle temple similar to the Ender City, but I guess we'll have to do that in the next jungle build I do. After the jungle was finished off, in the morning, I crafted up some more beehives and campfires to finish off the bee farm around the area of the farms. And after they were placed down, I used the last of my bone meal to farm out some oak trees and also spent a while at the cobblestone generator again because there is still one segment remaining on the big circle that is completely empty, and I think I know exactly what to put there. But before I could get to building, I actually headed back over to the Holy Grail of Dirt, but this time for terracotta instead, and stacked up on a whole bunch of it in all different colors. And so, on day 92, work began on the final segment and the final major build of this video. You see, the villagers have been extremely useful to me this time around, and, well, they haven't really seen sunlight at all in their life. So I decided to repay them by building them their very own village. Now, I would say this is just like home, but their home is a wooden box with no windows, so it's nothing like home. Anyways, I only ended up building the very basic type of villager house, mainly because I didn't really think any of the other types would fit in here. And I mean, I did give them different colors, so I guess they are a little bit unique from each other. However, with all the village built up, it came time to begin the single most tedious thing I have done in this video. And that was to actually populate the village by moving all of the villagers from the bottom all the way up and into their new home. So I set up a very janky system of pistons to get them to the right height, and then built a bridge over to just drop them in. Now, when I tell you this took so long, I mean it. But eventually, I managed to get everybody safely over into their new home, and even found an iron golem just chilling in my house. And I mean, he was a super chill guy, so I guess he can stay. For some reason, on day 97, I decided to place down the enchantment table in one of the outer circles that I completely forgot to build anything in, for whatever reason. Before then, building up a little picnic table area over in the cherry blossom biome thing that I created. I mean, it's not much, but from a distance, it looks kinda nice and just adds a little bit more color. But now, with the build pretty much done, I decided to take a trip into the nether and just flew around to see if I could find anything interesting. And I did run into 2 bastions back to back, but I really didn't need anything from them, and it was just a risk I didn't want to take, so I just passed them by, getting the achievement for visiting every nether biome apparently. But after that, I literally decided to leave the nether because there really wasn't much for me there. Once I got back home, I just spent some time taking in the build from the house as the sun went down. The end was looming as the sun arose on day 98, and I really don't have much left to do, so I guess I'll just dedicate this day to you guys. How you doing? I hope you're all doing well. I really appreciate you watching. I know I say it a lot, but genuinely, from the bottom of my heart, I really, really appreciate every single one of you so much, and it means the world to me that you take the time out of your day to watch the stuff that I make. It truly means a lot. Honestly, I can't put it into words. Anyways, sentimental ramble aside, I did actually clean up some things on day 98 by getting rid of the bridges laying around everywhere and just ruining my land value. Although I don't think it's worth much anyways, you know, down to location being at the edge of the universe or something. But yeah, I didn't just stand around doing nothing all day, I did get a little bit of stuff cleaned up. On day 99, I immediately got attacked by a berry bush, and then went and put the armor trim that I got to use and dripped myself out with some of the eye pattern trim, and I used the emeralds as the material, and to be fair, this came out looking pretty nice. I like the kind of green with the turquoisey diamond, it's nice. Anyways, after dealing with my armor, I ended up finding a bee that was breaking it down real funky style, before then grabbing the chicken eggs that I got from the trial chamber absolutely ages ago, and threw them down over in the cherry blossom biome, getting 3 chickens that now just exist here. For whatever reason, they're just here now. But after the chickens, I then went down underneath the base and cleared up the whole mess that I left under there, because it was pretty bad. And finally, day 100, the final day. I was kind of just thinking about how far we'd come in this skyblock from the original island all the way up to where we are now, and I think that's one of the main reasons why I like skyblock so much, is the just utter progression that you can have in it. It's really satisfying. Anyways, I said goodbye to my extremely helpful villagers, along with the iron golem, and then the chickens, but I could only find 1. I don't know where the rest went, but it's fine because they existed for the whole of like 2 seconds, and now they'll never be seen again. So I'm not too sad about the loss of the other 2. But now the time has also come for me to say goodbye to you. As always, thank you all so very much for watching. I do really appreciate it, and I also know that this is quite a shorter video, but don't worry about it because the next one should be back to normal. But yeah, thank you all so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed, and I will see you all in the next video. Adios.